Welcome back to the London Christmas Tournament Expert Division Open Weekend Round. Hole number 4. Here we're playing the sniper bounce up shot. We're going to do some ball swaps. You want to start with a Titan, switch to a Katana, and then switch back to a Kingmaker or keep the Titan. We're trying to keep our winds between 8 and 9 mile an hour here. So sometimes you'll get to use the Titan, sometimes you'll need to switch to a Kingmaker. But I would always start off with the Titan, and that way you can add your spins. And then if you need to switch to a Kingmaker in the end, you can. If you don't have to, and it saves you a little bit of time. We're starting off at P3 max rest. We're going to have the white ring touching the bunker. P3 max rest. I do have a Titan on here. You can't see it because of the replay. But 2 right spin, 2.8 backspin. You're going to switch to a Katana, then switch back to the Titan or back to a Kingmaker, whichever you need to keep your wins in the 8s, right? We want to keep our wins in the 8s. There are some wind angles here that we need to pay attention to. They're fairly simple as far as where I'm looking. I'm using this row of bushes here in the back as my reference points. Anything from the center of this first bush to the center of the second bush. In the middle of that is my neutral angle. To the right is tailwind. To the left is crosswind. Okay? In the crosswind angle, you need to use different amounts of underpower than you do in the neutral and the tailwind. This is all going to be based on the amount of power you add to this ball. So it's the same. We're using right curl. It's the same curl every time. You'll just need to have it higher or lower as needed for wind angle and wind strength, and I'll go over that in a second. Just remember, these are your wind angles, and then I'll show you the changes that need to be made in a second. All right. This is right here. So what I'm looking at on this shot is the right side of my ball. I want it to be just over halfway into splitting the shot circle, right? The right to left amount of curl you have is not as important as the up down power you put on the ball here. Just make sure that you're slightly over center, just a click or two closer to the outside wall than you would be to the inside wall. The most important part is the amount of power, and what I'm using to judge that is this bottom tip of the shot circle and where it is in relation to the ball. So we got the bottom of the ball, and then we have this tip that points up here. That's what I'm looking at. If you're in the crosswind angle and your wind is 8 to 8.5, this is what it needs to look like. You need to be 2 clicks above that tip, which is what you see here. If your wind is 8.6 to 9.1 in the crosswind angle, then you need to be 4 clicks above this tip with the bottom of your ball. All right? So this is what it looks like. It needs to have a couple of clicks more under power if you have crosswind and heavy wind. And I'm going to explain why. I know it sounds weird. And this is not necessarily an orthodox way to kind of tweak this shot out, but it's what's working and getting consistency here. If you have the neutral angle, then you want the bottom of the ball to be touching that tip for winds between 8 and 8.5. Winds between 8.6 and 9.1, you want the bottom of your ball to be 1 click down into that tip. If you have the tailwind angle, you need the bottom of your ball to be 2 clicks down into the tip. For lower, 8.0 to 8.5, and 8.6 to 9.1, you need the bottom of the ball to be 3 clicks down into that tip. That's how I'm dropping this shot with consistency. It's the only way I've been able to drop it with consistency. I know it's different. May be difficult for you to see the bottom of the ball. If you have to, you can use the top tip as a reference too. It's just not as easy to see. Or if you have, grid lines going across your screen sideways, then you can judge the up down based on whatever ball you're using and where where the line crosses, whatever it takes. I'm going to tell you right now, this one is consistent if you can get the up and down correct on this ball. Practice it a few times, and hopefully you can walk away from this one with the hole-in-one, even though it's a little different than what you're used to seeing. Because we're getting such major wind angle changes, and then we're also using a King Maker or a Titan, the amount of wind push we're getting changes, but that's not why you need to use more underpower in a crosswind angle. I know that sounds counterintuitive. I'm going to show you why right now and then let you go. When we are adjusting in the crosswind angle, we adjust down towards this rough on the bottom right hand side of your screen here, and this actually slopes upwards here. And so what happens is when we adjust down to it, we actually gain a little bit of elevation here, and it gives us too much power. This is a speed shot. If we come in too slow or too fast, we're not going to get it. If you come in at the right speed, it's pretty forgiving. There's a nice little groove. But to get the speed right, this little hill kind of screws us up. So that's why we're having to do what we're having to do. Practice it a few times. You can definitely get this drop. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get it. And we'll catch you on the next one.